My friends, you and I are being played by the media and the Democrats. This video is an addendum to my main channel segment over at youtube.com/Timcast, where I basically called out this insane media smear of Donald Trump. If you missed it, the general context is simple. They claim that Donald Trump called military vets losers. This story on its face is so absurd, no one will believe it. When I was making the thumbnail for this, trying to describe what was going on, I was like, if I just said the media and Democrats were working together, people are going to be like, what else is new? So why would they publish a patently absurd story where Donald Trump allegedly claimed he didn't understand why the U.S. fought with the allies? They want it to be absurd. You know why? They got me to do a whole segment on it. But do you know what I was talking about the past several segments to nearly 1 million plus views? I was talking about riots and violence. And we've been talking about nothing but riots and violence for the past several weeks. And it's been tearing at Joe Biden's polls. And this was a very well-crafted, in my opinion, distraction. And we all fell for it. I'm seeing now everybody on Twitter say, can you believe the lies? Who in their right mind would believe it? And like clockwork, people fell for the bait. The story is absurd. It's meant to be absurd. It serves two purposes. First, if the smear works, then people won't like Trump because they'll believe that he was smearing the vets. Secondly, the smear probably won't work on people like me or other members of the punditry class, and we will mock the story for being so ridiculous. But it worked beyond that. It got us off base. We were talking about the violence and the insurrection, and now we're talking about media collusion once again. Something that's kind of nebulous, and it has everyone else on the defensive. It has Trump on the defensive. So I pulled up this tweet again from Byron York, and I want to break down just how clever this is. Take a look. Many of the questions for Joe Biden after his remarks today consisted of reporters asking Biden to elaborate on how bad Trump is. This is meant to reshape the news cycle. Joe Biden was playing catch up. He was desperately running after Donald Trump. He said, I'm not going to go to Kenosha. Trump goes to Kenosha. Then Biden says, OK, fine, I'll go to Kenosha. No matter what he did, he was 2 steps behind Trump. They got in front of him. Take a look at these questions that were asked of Joe Biden. First, what does the Atlantic article tell you about Trump's soul and the life he leads? This is meant to attack Trump based on the merits of the article itself. The article, which was instantly debunked, for the most part, by a BuzzFeed News reporter. Come on. They wouldn't be so blind. At first, I believe I fell for this trick. So I'll do this addendum. That it's so obvious that they're working together that we can instantly call it out. But they're trying to get us distracted. The first question does just that. It makes us talk about whether Trump really likes or doesn't like the troops. And that's a weak point for Trump because of comments he made about John McCain. But we're not talking about the violence anymore, are we? Question number 2, he says, what would you say to supporters of QAnon? And what would you say to Trump for not rejecting the conspiracy? This is brilliant stuff. Check it out. Now, he's directly targeted an online community. These individuals who may be talking about violence and Maxwell and the trafficking arrests that were recently made will now be thrown off and be targeting Biden because he told them that they should seek mental health or a mental health assessment or something like that. Treatment. You know why that's a perfect answer? Because they're now going to respond by saying, what about you, Biden? What about your mental health? And what won't they be talking about? The fact that Donald Trump and feds have been saving children, which has been happening, and they won't be talking about the violence. Third, Trump mocked you for not wearing a mask. And 4, have you been tested for COVID? Joe Biden's plan was to slam Trump on his COVID response. Politico noted that because of the violence, Joe Biden was forced to counter Trump's law and order narrative. These reporters are helping Joe Biden get back to the COVID narrative. 5, Bill Barr, China, Iran, Russia, intelligence briefings, once again, giving them the leg up and shifting the narrative off of COVID and towards Russia and foreign threats. Getting everyone to focus on foreign issues, whatever they can do to make sure we aren't talking about the riots and the violence. Because last night, that Antifa guy pulled a gun, got killed when they're trying to arrest him. 6, they mentioned Kamala Harris. What's her role in the campaign? Just another opportunity to reshape the narrative. 7, COVID. Interesting. That's once again trying to get them back on the COVID narrative. 8, Trump suggested voters vote twice. What do you make of that? That's interesting because this one, I believe, doesn't actually help them. I believe Donald Trump's whole play on the vote twice thing, which I'll do in another segment, was meant to force them to address the inconsistencies, the inaccuracies, and the potential fraud that comes with mail-in voting. But again, if it gets them back onto the subject of mail-in voting, for which Democrats are strong to an extent, and it brings them back into COVID, I think this is beneficial. I'll put it this way. They know that there are concerns about mail-in voting, but the media has consistently covered this up for them. They also know that Democrats are scared about COVID. This allows them to get back onto the COVID narrative. The Democrats were being swayed by the violence narrative. We saw it in Wisconsin. Matt Taibbi mentioned it, that some of these Democrat guys who are like on the fence, or not necessarily Democrat, but kind of on the fence people, were saying the Democrats have no plan, and the violence was shocking them. They want to change the narrative. 9, he says, you said today's the angriest you have been at a presidential candidate. Joe Biden responded saying the president must be calm and collected, an effort to push back on Trump's more bombastic approach. 10, we know the president has been attacking mail-in voting, so has Russia. And there it is. You see, early on when they mentioned Trump saying vote twice, they're now going to say, see, Donald Trump is working with Russia to undermine elections. There it is. 11, jobless report. They say you acknowledge that less than half of jobs lost in the spring have been recovered because today was a great day. It was good news on jobs. Once again, this whole list of questions is perfectly crafted to shift the narrative back to Biden. 12, would you support more Muslim countries normalizing relations with Israel, even though it might undermine Palestinian leverage for a two-state solution? Anything they can say to undermine the great job Trump did. Well, I ain't playing that game no mo. Ladies and gentlemen, I bring you the statement from Bill Barr. Let's get things back on track. Please consider sharing this video and subscribing to make sure people don't get pulled off base. There are violent riots sweeping this country. There's an extremist who just killed a Trump supporter. And they would have the nerve to try and argue that Trump said something as stupid as, why would the U.S. join the allies? Derp. Here's what really happened. Attorney General William P. Barr on the tracking down of fugitive Michael Forrest Reinl. Attorney General Barr has released the following statement. Last Saturday, Aaron J. Danielson was shot and killed amid the continuing violence in Portland. Local authorities subsequently obtained an arrest warrant for Michael Forrest Reinl, a self-described Antifa member suspected of the alleged murder. Reinl fled to Washington State, where he was located yesterday by members of a fugitive task force led by the U.S. Marshals Service, the FBI, and state and local law enforcement partners. When Reinl attempted to escape arrest and produced a firearm, he was shot and killed by law enforcement officers. The tracking down of Reinl, a dangerous fugitive, admitted Antifa member and suspected murderer, is a significant accomplishment in the ongoing effort to restore law and order to Portland and other cities. I applaud the outstanding cooperation among federal, state, and local law enforcement, particularly the fugitive task force team that located Reinl and prevented him from escaping justice. The streets of our cities are safer with this violent agitator removed, and the actions that led to his location are an unmistakable demonstration that the United States will be governed by law, not violent mobs. Bravo, good sir. Thank you, Bill Barr. And thank you to the federal government for trying to stop the violence. They want us to ignore it. They're telling us there is no war in Ba Sing Se. They're telling us there's no violence. They put out a piece. The Washington Post claiming 93% of the protests were peaceful. They said they are desperate because we are angry that they have for too long placated the far left, negotiated with these terrorists. We've seen the photos. We've seen the videos. No, I don't want to ignore it and forget about it. I want justice. I want the people that have been burning down buildings to be stopped. I want the people who have had their lives destroyed to receive some kind of justice. And the only way we get that is by calling out the criminals. This lunatic, the crackpot killer, Antifa's crackpot killer, thought he was surrounded by cars full of angry Trump supporters with weapons, and that's why he had to shoot an innocent man near his home on the sidewalk. That's why he did it. I would have been stabbed, he said. We watched the video. He was not surrounded by Trump supporters. The dude was out of his mind. I'm sad he died. I don't like hearing I oppose the death penalty. I don't want anyone to die. But this guy, he pulled a gun on the feds. They were trying to stop him. You know what? That was his choice. He believed the police were working together with the Proud Boys like some grand conspiracy, so it makes sense that he drew a weapon, and the feds took him down. I'm sad to hear it. I would have much preferred this man stood trial for his crimes, and we revealed his crimes. He is escaping justice. I'm sorry, I gotta say it. He is. He will not see his day in court, and we will not get closure for the murder he perpetrated, allegedly. He admitted to it. That's why I say he did it. He said in an interview it was self-defense. So he's basically all but admitted to it. This is what we need to focus on. Don't let the media, the Democrats, distract you. Because otherwise, you will wake up once again to see some random lunatic burning down cars or buildings or whatever. Now, this all simmered down's good. But I'm glad to see this guy is being brought to justice. The Democrats will try and sweep it under the rug. No, I'm not interested. This guy and people like him, they have plans. They're crazy. And let's not forget what they represent. And that's why we need law and order. Yeah, Donald Trump was offering up something important to people, and now they're trying to dangle the keys off to the other side. Now, I'm not falling for it. I got a couple more segments in a few minutes. Stick around, and I will see you all shortly.